Good morning, everyone. This is Father Nate, missionary priest in Italy, and thanks for joining us today, October 23rd, on No Greater Delight, our podcast on Marian feasts and Marian meditations. Well, to start us off, we're told that today they celebrate Our Lady of Consolation on Notre-Dame du Comfort in Honfleur in France. There's also a basilica and a national shrine in Cary, Ohio, based on the same devotion. We're told, and again this comes from the Abbot Orsini, that this chapel is much frequented. 2 children have been raised to life there, in memory of which their figures are there in the chapel in silver. Also, in Peschiera della Garda in Verona, they celebrate Madonna del Frassino. So this is the feast today. She was proclaimed in 1933 as the heavenly patroness and queen of Lago di Garda, like this Garda lake. The story of the shrine goes back to a miraculous event that took place on May 11th, 1510. The little peasant man, Bartolomeo Broglia, worked in a field not too far from Peschiera when a serpent, like a big serpent, suddenly came towards him like in a threatening way. The poor peasant cried and shouted out, asking Our Lady for help. It's very interesting. Yeah, so it says here the snake, as if it were hit by a mysterious force, just took off. And under a nearby Frassino plant, I'm not even sure what that would be in English. There was as he saw under these branches that had kind of been bent to make a small little shrine, like a roadside shrine. There was a small statue of Our Lady in terracotta, and so from that place, and because of that wonderful event, now they have a huge shrine dedicated to Regina del Garda, right? And all of these are under the care to this day of the Franciscans. In Zaragoza, in Aragon, in Spain, they celebrate the Purissima Votata, the Immaculata of the Vow. So the votive procession dates back to 1834 when there was a cholera epidemic. City leaders carry the Virgin statue now to every house in the town in honor of her stopping this cholera epidemic. We also celebrate Maria Hilf in Gubel in Zug in Switzerland, Mary Help. This commemorates an apparition which dates back to 1531. Right? And so that is what we are celebrating in the Marian world today on October 23rd. For today's reading from True Devotion to Mary by St. Louis de Montfort, we continue with part 2, which talks on the most excellent devotion to our Blessed Lady, or the perfect consecration to Jesus through Mary. Again, we're in section 1. There was that preliminary section. Now we're section 1. In what consists the perfect consecration to Jesus Christ through Mary? And today, with point 126, we begin speaking about this consecration as a renewal of our baptismal vows, which is quite interesting. And so this is the point he makes at 126, and then continuing. And so that's going to take us almost all the way through this particular section, right? So at 126, this is what the saint says. I have said that this devotion may most justly be called a perfect renewal of the vows or promises of holy baptism. For every Christian before his baptism was the slave of the devil, seeing that he belonged to him. He has in his baptism, by his own mouth or by his sponsors, solemnly renounced Satan, his pomps and his works, and he has taken Jesus Christ for his Master and Sovereign Lord, to depend upon him in the quality of a slave of love. This is what we do by our present devotion. We renounce, as is expressed in the formula of consecration, the devil, the world, sin, and self, and we give ourselves entirely to Jesus Christ by the hands of Mary. Nay, we even do something more. For in baptism we ordinarily speak by the mouth of another, namely by our godfather or godmother. And so we give ourselves to Jesus Christ not by ourselves, but through another. But in this devotion we do it by ourselves, voluntarily, knowing what we are doing. Moreover, in holy baptism, we do not give ourselves to Jesus by the hands of Mary, at least not in an expressed manner. And we do not give him the value of our good actions. We remain entirely free after baptism, either to apply them to whom we please or to keep them for ourselves. But by this devotion, we give ourselves to our Lord expressly by the hands of Mary, and we consecrate to him the value of all our actions. 27, or point 127. Men, says St. Thomas Aquinas, make a vow at their baptism to renounce the devil and all his pomps. And then he gives us the Latin phrase, in baptismo vovent homines ab renunciare diabolo et pompis eius. This vow, says St. Augustine, is the greatest and most indispensable of all vows. Votum maximum nostrum quo vivimos nos in Christo esse mansuros. It is thus also that the canonists speak, precepium votum est, quid in baptissime facimus. So it's like it's under like a precept of vow that we make in baptism. Yet who has kept this great vow? Who is it that faithfully performs the promises of holy baptism? Have not almost all Christians swerved from the loyalty which they promised Jesus in their baptism? Whence can come this universal disobedience, except from the oblivion, the forgetfulness of the promises and engagements of holy baptism, and from the fact that hardly anyone ratifies of himself the contract he made with God by those who stood sponsors for him?
Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed our Marian podcast. As St. John Paul II teaches us, from Mary we learn to love Christ, her Son, the Son of God. Through her intercession, may we grow ever closer to him. We encourage you to share this with a loved one or friend and help spread our devotion to Mary. Thank you, and God bless.